What is cracking, Hope Nation? It's your friendly neighborhood, Kevin Hines, and this is yet another episode of yes, maybe, it is the Hinesights podcast, but it's a special episode from Stuff That Matters with the New Hope Treatment Centers and with Matt Simon and friends. It's going to be an incredible episode. We really get into it about brain and mental health, behavioral health and well-being. We talk about brain pain and how to survive pain every single time, no matter what kind of pain you're in. How to fight to thrive, to be well, and as you already know, to be here tomorrow and every single day after that. It's going to be an incredible episode. So whether you're viewing, listening, watching, or subscribing, or all of the above, because some people do that, that's what you got to do to find this episode on the Hinesights podcast. Take care, be well, be here tomorrow, but be here for this podcast. Listen to the entire thing and share the clips that go on socials with friends. See ya.
Kevin, again, I love, it's so good to see you, man. And thank, again, your talk at New Hope from a couple years ago. I still swear, I think once a week, I think about a couple quotes that you said, and I'm sure there are some kids and staff who do the same thing. So, you know, your impact and what you do with your story, you know, we have felt it directly at New Hope, and we're looking forward to just kind of catching up a little bit.
Oh, I'm glad to. It's wonderful. New Hope is incredible.
Well, so, you know, start with this. You know, what are the biggest things that you've got going on in your, you know, I'd love for you to kind of catch our audience up on what Kevin Hines is doing now, whether it's books, movies, talking. Where are you going? What are you up to right now?
Absolutely. Well, traveling, speaking, obviously, around the country, around the globe, sharing my story of hope, healing, and recovery from what I call brain pain or mental health struggles and diagnoses. I live with bipolar depression, as you well know. And so I share that story and how I continually overcome the obstacles in my way. So that's been going very well, reaching a lot of folks. Yesterday, in fact, inspired a young lady to become a psychologist. So that was exciting. So a lot of great endeavors there. And then we've got the podcast that's just relaunched, Hinesights podcast, HINESIGHTS, appropriately named with my
That's
last
an awesome name.
I love the name.
Yes. So we got that going on. So we're having folks on that, and that's going well. We release a new episode every Thursday across all platforms. And then my YouTube channel has 830 videos, youtube.com/Kevin Hines, 830 videos and counting. We drop about 3 a week, either short or long form videos on YouTube, all designed to better brain health. And what we're learning is that health classes from all over the country, even all over the world, are using these videos in their health classes for high school students to change their perspective on mental well-being. So that's been pretty incredible to have been going on. So everywhere I travel, I find a new health class that is utilizing the videos, and that's been great. They're also very good for adults alike. They're entertaining, they're educational, they're intuitive, they're fun, and they're helping people. And then I want to thank you all because at New Hope, because you helped us spark the film The Net, which is currently in production. And your sponsorship really helped us kick things off. So that was wonderful. We really appreciate that. The Net film is the harrowing journey, the 90-year effort to stop suicides at the Golden Gate Bridge. And I'm sure you know, as of January 1 of this year, the Net is in place, and very few people will ever again die off the Golden Gate Bridge, if any. So it's a pretty incredible endeavor. And the film we're making about this story is really going to be historic and very powerful. So those are the top tier things we're working on right now, along with a few other ones, but those are the ones that come to mind.
You got a lot of irons in the fire, Kevin. My goodness.
We do.
Keep yourself busy. A real simple question. When do you expect the Net to be released? Is that this year? Is it 6 months? How do those things work?
I don't want to rush it. It's a very delicate process with getting into film festivals and everything. So it's either going to be released in 2025 or early 2026. It's going to depend on when we complete the actual edit and lock picture. So that all depends on a lot of people because there's a lot of folks involved. We're really excited that Zach Williams, Robin Williams' son, has come on board and is producing with us. So we're also excited to announce that Blair Underwood is going to narrate, the actor, and that's incredible. And we're also very excited to announce that Taylor Lautner, Taylor is an actor, he is going to executive produce as well. So very exciting times, and the film will be backed by a lot of really great and wonderful people who really care about the cause.
That's fantastic.
Oh,
One of the things you mentioned, I don't mean to hog the microphone here, but your travels, right? You're all over the country, you're international. Can you maybe just share with the audience a little bit about what you see in terms of mental health awareness and how that may shift or may not shift from one area, one region, one country, one state? I think sometimes we get so focused on the world immediately around us. And for Matt, Patrick, and I, and New Hope, it's like North Carolina, South Carolina, and that, and some other states, but really we get very focused. Can you talk a little bit about, some of the things you observe?
Sure. I think that let's first talk about the commonalities. Okay. So pain is universal. It's coming for all of us if it hasn't already. And so I think that the one thing I find that is always the same is that people are in pain, they're struggling, and they need help. And that's the biggest common theme I feel. The second biggest common theme I feel, certainly with middle and high school age children, is two things. They're being bullied at school. They're being bullied when they go home on social media by the same peers that left them at school. And it's devastating. And those students don't quite understand that their words hold action and hold weight. They don't quite comprehend that the chosen words they use toward their peers can devastate them forever, and can lead to things like suicidal ideation and even attempts. The second thing I hear on a negative side, most commonly around the country, around the globe, from those same age students or youth, is that they like to go to school every day. They like to be in treatment every day. They don't like going home because they're being abused and neglected at home. And that's the really sad part that I see around the world, is that common theme of abuse and neglect that's occurring to our children. And it really breaks my heart. On the positive side, what I'm seeing more of is groups like New Hope that are doing good work to change lives outright. What I am seeing are organizations, burgeoning organizations that are changing the lives of youth all over the country and all over the world, and mental health organizations that are getting involved in a much deeper way to help people fight their way through pain. And that's been incredible to watch. So I really appreciate what you all do at New Hope. It means the world to me.
Yeah, Mike, it's kind of a similar thought I had too, because Kevin, your perspective, one of the things I wanted to ask is, did you ever think you'd be here doing all of this stuff? Did you ever wake up and you're like, man, this is my life and what a wild journey this has been?
My mom asked me that the other day.
Yeah.
She said, did you ever think you'd be doing all of this? I just released my third book. My children's book is on the way. And that's a children's anti-bullying book, by the way. It's dedicated to my mom, Debbie Hines, and the way she treated me when I was struggling with bullying in grade school. And it's how she got me through it. It's how she would stick sticky notes in my lunch bag that said, you are a good person and I love you and you're wonderful. And, that would get me through the day when all the other kids were tormenting me. And she really was my hero back then, doing all that. And the book is called The Dimly Lit Star. And it's about this dimly lit star named Little Shines. And then there's Mama Shines, with the two stars at the end of the Big Dipper. And we branch off from the Big Dipper and wander around space and deal with the spatial medias, and it's very apropos to kids in grade school right now who are being bullied by their peers. And I never thought I'd be doing any of this. I thought I'd be dead at 19, really, given what I did that day off the Golden Gate Bridge, trying to take my life. But I'm here, and I get to be here every day, and it's a gift. And I don't take that for granted. I don't take one moment for granted on this earth, because it's all a gift. And I really appreciate every second. So this is a wonderful journey I've been on with my lovely wife, Margaret, who's my greatest rock, my greatest advocate, and my best friend. I'm so lucky I have that.
Yeah, Mike, when you were asking about what he see, what Kevin sees on his travels, well, a lot of conversations that Mike and I will have, because we just talk about the world and the system and what we get exposed to at New Hope. And I think it's a common thing out there to say, I think some of the data is backing up that there's a real mental health crisis amongst our young people. And I think it can be easy to get very discouraged right now by everything. And I was having some conversation with folks about, I think it's become almost easy to say it's all social media, but I also think it is a lot of the social media, like we had no idea what we were doing. Social media has brought a lot of good, but it has been able to magnify bad behavior and amplify bullying in a way that is never been the case in all of human history. And then it's also been able to depersonalize things. So it's so much easier to be mean.
Yeah.
You're not doing somebody's. And I just, but yeah, I get curious. Like, are you seeing things, like you said, there's pockets of amazing things happening. Do you think overall, are we still not even really reconciling with it? We are moving in a rough direction for our kids. Like we might have decades of cleanup to do with some of our young people.
Oh, we'll definitely have decades to clean up, stuff to clean up for our kids right now. But I would say this, I think social media entrepreneurs have to take more responsibility in the way comments are had. They have the ability to shut it off. Just turn off the comments.
Yep.
It's so simple, but they don't want to ruin engagement. But there's ways around it. There's ways to fix the algorithm. They have the tools. They have the scientific ability to fix the algorithm that if a hateful speech comes on or a hateful mention comes on and says you should go take your life, you should go kill yourself, which is happening all over the country, all over the world with students. If that comes on, it immediately needs to disappear and not be let into the platform. And that they have that ability, but they're choosing not to do it. I use social media for good every day. I don't want it to.
Yeah.
I don't want it to go away. We use it for good. We use it to help people. And that's awesome. And there are a lot of people like us that use social media to help people. So we don't want to lose that aspect of it. But we need to curtail the hate speech and the anger and the rage and the bullying. And there are ways to do that. It's not about freedom of speech. It's about freedom of your ability to live without being encumbered by people who are hurting you with their words. These are children. They don't have the full capacity of their brains. Their brains are not fully developed. They shouldn't be bombarded by these messages that tell them things like you should just go kill yourself. Because when they're so influenced by these things, that's what they're going to go do. And that's wrong.
Oh, and I don't even think kids who actually are spewing out the mean stuff even really know what they're doing either.
Right.
They have no idea that what their actions can cause or be a causative factor in a death. They do not comprehend the true reality of their words. And I think that's a big problem. Mark Zuckerberg came out from Facebook and said social media doesn't harm children. It's an outright lie. It's an outright lie. I'm sorry. It's an outright lie.
Well, and then you think about media, social media interactions amongst peers, right? And then compare that to an environment in a classroom where peers are interacting, or on a sports field, or something that's not connected through the internet. There's typically an adult or some other individual who can coach kids through exchanges that are hateful, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you could argue that I have middle school kids, and we're pretty diligent about the technology thing, but we're probably not as diligent as we need to be. But when I'm around kids, or when adults are around kids and kids are spewing something that's hateful, at least an adult can kind of referee that, guide that, interrupt that, coach that. Where on an electronic platform, there's none of that going on, right? It's just in a vacuum.
It's a free for all. It's a vacuum. If we could have some kind of intermediary to say, "Hey, not appropriate, you're out." Just kick that stuff off the platforms. And that's all within their own possibility. I think we need to move in that direction. Yes, I don't want to be one for censoring speech. I want to be one for censoring hate negativity, and spite.
So,
Well, I think it's that it's almost in a there's an analogy analogous to like the net almost, which is like I think in 10 years, the version of the net, somebody's gonna have to do something around social media, and somebody's going to produce a film around looking back on how insane it was that we were just allowing all of this to happen without just some appropriate basic guardrails on some of this stuff. We have to protect kids from themselves. It's just again, and my oldest daughter is in 3rd grade, and she has normal friend drama every day. Like this apparently just happens in 3rd grade now. But to imagine, she's a sensitive kid, big heart. To imagine if that actually did follow her after 2:30 every day, she wouldn't be able to handle it. Like she would not be able to handle it. So.
And the good news is there are apps now where parents can follow and track what their kids are doing, and they can block whatever they need to. So that's a step in the right direction. The other thing, my wife is on a board of a group called Half the Story, and they limit screen time and help with people understanding how to manage social media for their brain health, which is incredible. So there are groups that are doing some great work in that field. So there's some forward movement, absolutely.
What you used the word influence at some point in this conversation, and you're a person of influence for a lot of people, right? That's sharing your story is very influential. Have you had the opportunity to have an audience with power brokers in the social media space to listen to your voice? Has that ever occurred?
Not particularly, but I would love to have that opportunity. I think that's down the road. I think we can certainly make those inroads and make that happen. I think that I'd love to be heard in that realm, in that space, by those types of folks. Would they listen to me? I don't know. I hope so.
Okay.
We need some new voices. Every now and then I've watched some of the congressional hearings where the social media people are talking to Congress, and it reminds me of when I was in high school talking to my grandparents about technology. There's a disconnect too. Like the people who are leading our country, I'm sorry, they're not on these platforms, so they have no clue. They're just being
exactly.
So.
The other thing is it's almost analogous to when they said smoking doesn't kill people,
Right.
If you think about it like that, it's this, we're just repeating ourselves all over again. It's absolutely taking a massive effect on children's minds because their minds aren't fully developed, their brains aren't fully developed, and we need to be aware of that. We need to be honest about it, and we need to move forward. It's time to move forward.
Okay, let's if we can go back, let's go back to the net a little bit, and can you just, obviously Mike and I and Patrick, and we've been tracking this and know a little bit of the background and the context, but speak to an audience member who's maybe never, looks at the Golden Gate Bridge as that beautiful bridge in San Francisco and has no idea about some of this other part. Can you just walk us through all of that?
Absolutely. So 1937, the bridge was fully constructed. 1937, 6 months after the bridge was put in place, the first suicide occurred. Harold Waber, World War II veteran. Harold left a note in his World War II boots on the bridge that read, "This is as far as I go." He was dealing with at the time what they called shell shock, what we today would call PTSD. 6 months after his attempt, they tried to build the first railing. The bridge patrol of that era fought to raise the rail to stop suicides there. They lost. 6 subsequent fights after that to raise the rail, they failed. The 8th fight, the fight from my father, Patrick Kevin Hines, Paul Muller, and Dave Hall, who founded the Bridge Rail Foundation. I was a co-founding board member. That fight won. That was a fight we fought for the better part of 23 years until now. The bridge net was approved on June 27, 2014. It just took that long for delays and construction to occur, different construction companies coming in and out, different construction issues happening. But the net is fully complete as of January 1st of this year. It's already saved so many lives. As a matter of fact, from 2022, I believe there were over 30 deaths at the Golden Gate Bridge. That number was brought down by over half by 2023, by almost the completion of the net. Then the net was complete and people are not dying there. So it's been an incredible journey, to say the least. We fought harrowingly for a very long time. And let's be clear, it was a fight. It was a fight, tooth and nail. The Bridge Directorate, the majority of them were against us for a very long time. the San Francisco society was against us for a very long time. You're going to ruin the aesthetics of the bridge. Don't do that. You ruin what it looks like. What are the aesthetics of a bridge compared to one human life, someone you know, love, or care about, who's in a great deal of brain pain and needs desperately needs help? So they always said, oh, if you put up the net there, they'll just go somewhere else. That's been disproven over time, categorically false. So when you remove an icon for suicide from being an icon from suicide's the metropolitan area around that area, because you've shown people in that area how much you actually care. And that is incredible. When you show people how valued their lives are, guess what? They ask for help. It's an incredible phenomenon. And that goes, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Dr. Jerry Motto of the 1970s VA system, head psychiatrist back then, fought for the bridge railing and net for 30 years. He passed away before he could see it into fruition, but his wife and he fought for 30 years. And Dr. Jerry Motto was a good friend of mine. He was on the Psychiatric Foundation of Northern California, the board I was on before the Bridge Rail Foundation, also fighting for the bridge net to go up. And Dr. Jerry Motto created these things called the caring letters. When people would leave his psych ward who were suicidal, he wanted a way to follow up with them. This is in the 1970s and 80s. He wanted a way to follow them. So we would send them caring letters. How much we care about you. We love you. We're worried about you. We lack any judgment for what you're going through. We're wishing you well. And we empathize with what you're going through. And by the way, here are the signs, symptoms, and triggers we're worried about what you're dealing with in case you were in denial. What that did was it gave people a perspective on their lives and what they were dealing with in written form. So it wasn't something that could go in one ear and out the other. It was something they could read over and over again. And what it did was it gave them hope. And it made them feel cared for, loved, and valued. And with that, a 60% reduction in suicides occurred in the VA system in the 1970s. Dr. Jerry Motto was a pioneer. People forgot about the caring letters. There are some VA systems that still hold them true and still utilize them. It should be used VA system-wide. And we should bring it back in some kind of app format for people in mental pain, because it could do wonders for this world. To not just give caring letters to veterans, but to give caring letters that are filled with compassion, love, empathy, lack of judgment, and the signs, symptoms, and triggers we're worried about. 3 to 5 letters to people in brain pain from all walks of life who are desperately struggling with their mental health. We could get them these caring letters from the peers and the loved ones that care for them, and we can make a real difference and impact in their lives.
Good, Mike. Good.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, that's where you got technology that could step into the void and create a solution or part of a solution for brain pain, for people struggling. And like the app, right? If you develop that app, if you develop a way for people to receive that kind of support from caring individuals, what a difference that would make. So again, back to bringing it back a little bit to technology, not to sidebars there again, but there's an opportunity right there, Kevin, that you mentioned, an exciting one.
Yeah, and we're looking into it and seeing if that's something we can put together or partner with the group to put together. We don't want to do it alone. We want to do it with people who are like-minded and who care very much about individuals who are in pain, to help them get through what they're dealing with.
But the history of the bridge, there's so many fascinating things right there. I mean, the history of the bridge is fascinating. I think Mike and I were both like, wait, who's fighting against this? I think that's
right.
Both our first instinct was like, wait, what's the argument here?
Let me tell you, do you know, we were at a hearing, because you go every month to several hearings to raise the net, and you make your 3-minute allotted testimony. Everyone has 3 minutes to talk to this giant board of 18 or 19 people. And the board, the Bridge District Authority, had to be unanimous in raising the net, or else it couldn't happen. And so you had to get all 18 or 19 people to say yes. And it was really like, in the beginning, it was like 16 to 3 or 4 against us. So we had to whittle down over time the people who would vote in our favor. But I'll never forget, my father was giving his 3-minute allotted testimony at one of the hearings. And this is all caught on camera. And he's giving his 3 minutes, and he says, you guys should reinstate the toll at the booth to get onto to walk onto the bridge. When I was a kid, there was a toll. My son, Kevin, had no money. He would not have been able to get onto the walkway of the bridge that day. Thus, we would have gotten to him in time. And this woman stood up and she said, Patrick, my dad's name, more people die of sedentary lifestyles than die of suicide. And my dad yelled out, Leah, I like ice cream. Do you know how to roller skate? And she said, that's preposterous. He said, so are you. And that was on the nightly news. But you know, it was just like they were so out of touch with reality.
Yeah.
That their hub is the most frequented spot for suicide in the frickin' world. And that to be in denial of that and to think that that's okay is disgusting. And so fighting through that kind of vitriol was what we had to do on a daily basis.
Oh, it's wild. Yeah, and again, I think it's it probably speaks to something in human nature every now and then where we always put things as like an either or category when it's a both and, or we think to ourselves that sometimes problem solvers feel like, well, we have to solve all of the problem as opposed to just this one. It's like, no, I think you just have to solve one at a time. And I always, you know, a phrase I use is like, what is low hanging fruit? Like the net, putting a net at the goal actually seems relatively simple in the grand scheme of how do we make mental health better across the country. Like
Right.
these should be the easy fixes. Like the social media stuff is 50 times more complex than a net at the Golden Gate Bridge. But again, I think human nature, we resist change, we resist, I don't know what it is. It's just amazing that you guys had to battle for that long. It's just wild to me.
And you really think about it, we only battled for 23 years because we've been doing it for 23 years, but the fight has been going on back and forth, up and down for almost 90 years.
Right. Yeah.
This is a centuries old story, right? And so capturing that in this film, The Net, will be so critical, capturing the history of the Golden Gate Bridge, the history of the fight, and this massive success, and what's going to happen moving forward will be really a beautiful way to kind of wrap it in a bow.
Is the bridge owned by a quasi governmental agency, or how's that thing work?
Yeah, so when it was started, the bridge was privately owned, like no other bridge in America at the time. And there's several that have popped up now, but it was privately owned, like no other bridge of its kind. A $35 million bond was put out to build it, to start construction. People, so today I think it's still a privately owned entity by these bridge district authority members and their peers, all bureaucrats, socialites, things like that. And they own, operate, and run the ferry and bus system for the Golden Gate Bridge, and that's how they make their money. It's a pretty fascinating story, and there's a lot of issues. I highly recommend reading the book "Paying the Toll" by Louise Stibble about what she calls the corruption of the Golden Gate Bridge District Authority in their beginnings, in their formation. It's pretty fascinating.
Interesting.
What was it like in January of this year when it finally got, like, for you and for your family and for your team? What was that like to get that win?
You know, for me as a survivor of what I did there at the Golden Gate Bridge, it was really important, moving, and powerful and meaningful for me and my family. But I have to say something. For those who have lost loved ones to the Golden Gate Bridge, it was a bit anticlimactic. And I've heard that from folks that I love and dearly care about who have lost their loved ones that way, is that, yeah, we did it, but my son, my child, my loved one is still gone. And so I have to say that I'm very pleased and happy with the work we've done, but I still feel the pain from all the families that I worked with every day who struggle with the loss of their loved one who died off the Golden Gate Bridge.
This is shifting gears a little bit, but again, I think you're an expert in this space, and again, since you traveled the country and the world, I'd love to hear. 988 is the initiative that was obviously pushed out around, you know, instead of calling 911 for all mental health related things, call 988 and you're going to get rerouted theoretically to an expert that can help you if you're in a pinch or feeling suicidal. every state's doing it differently. I think the rollout, it seems like it was unanimously, the rollout in most states was kind of a bungle a bit. I'm curious what your thoughts on it from a conception. You think that's a good idea for us to have almost like a national suicide hotline? Have you heard or seen how that's working? Just curious your take.
I think we had the Lifeline 1-800-273 talk, and now we have the 988. I think it's great that we have the shortened number so it's easier to remember. I think it's very helpful for people a lot of the time. I think there are still these times when I'm hearing messages from people that are saying they're unable to get someone within the first few hours or even minutes, and that can be very difficult. I think that the bungled rollout is painful. It's not purposeful. Everyone's doing the best they can. I think the government needs to allocate a significant amount of more funds for 988 so we can have significant more backing and really bring on more volunteers or paid workers to answer these calls or to make these texts so that we're not siloed in that area, and so that people who are in desperate pain and need help get it right away. Not that they have to wait hours, but they have to wait seconds or minutes to have someone on the caring end of that line who says, I've got your back. I'm going to be here with you. I'm going to walk you through the pain. So those are my thoughts on that issue.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that, you know, we work in this space, so we're aware of 988. There's quite a few people that I associate with, friends, family, that really had no idea. You know, like I was the first one bringing them that information. And I think probably funding for that role, probably that's included in the lack of funding for the rollout or not enough funding during the rollout.
Yeah. To getting eyes on it is so important. And I think that we need to be better about that.
Well, again, I think I'm an optimist at heart. I think it starts at least with somebody having an awareness that we have to decriminalize mental health. So let's at least separate those things. And I think everybody feels like that's a win. That's a good thing. But now to your point, Kevin, now that we got this number, the worst thing we can do is not have somebody on the other end of that line. You'd almost rather not have the line at all if you're not going to have somebody at the end of that line. So it's almost like we created the good idea, but now we need to do the follow through. And
I think to be fair, the 988 number has received 8 million messages since its opening. So it's doing well in that regard. It is doing its job in that sense, and it is reaching a lot of people, and a lot of lives are being saved. So let's definitely say that. I think there's a lot more work to be done, though.
Yeah, awesome.
Kevin, also switching gears for a little bit, your story is obviously one that is well documented, but there was a time before the public speaking engagements, the podcasts, the films, the books. So, going back to that time before, your life kind of, shifted gears, for the better, obviously. When did you finally, realize that you needed to get out in front of an audience? You needed to get in front of a microphone, in front of a camera, and share your story, share your message? And when you start to see the impacts of, telling people about the things that you were going through as a youth?
Patrick, I'll tell you the story. So I was in my first psych ward stay after my attempt. So I went from my physical hospital stay, where I went from a wheelchair to a walker and a back brace to a back brace and a cane, then right into my first psych ward, right? And in that psych ward, a Franciscan friar, the chaplain of the hospital for 30 years, came into my room. And this is a guy who he would read the chart before he entered a room for 30 years. He would always read the chart so he knew what he was walking into. For this one time, he doesn't read the chart. He just feels compelled to walk right in. He sees me sitting there on my bed in my room, putting on my back brace. It was the first day I was putting on my back brace by myself. I was learning how to do it by myself. It was a pretty tough endeavor after my back surgery. And I had my cane to my right leaning on the bed. And he looks at me in a very jovial way and he goes, "Hey kid, what are you in for?" And I said, "Brother, I jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge." And he said, "Yeah, and I'm the Pope." He didn't believe me. He thought I was losing. I said, "No, brother, that's what happened. That's why the back brace, that's why the cane. I really did that. And I survived." And he said, "Oh my gosh, I feel so silly. I'm so glad you're okay. Let's pray." And he comes by to my left side and he sits down next to me and we start saying some prayers together, which I'm very familiar with as a Catholic. And he said, at the end of the prayer, he said, "Kid, when you get better, you want to talk about this." And I looked at him and I literally said, "About what? To who?" He said, "You'll see. Every day, Brother George Cherry would come to my room. Every day he would pray with me. Every day he would say, when he left me, kid, when you get better, you want to talk about this. On my final day of my stay, he looked me in the eyes and he said, Kevin, I expect you'll talk about this. And I looked down and I was like, see ya. I had no intention. So I get out of that hospital, and my father and I go to church very soon thereafter. The church I grew up in as a kid, the school I grew up in as a kid, St. Cecilia's. And we're at church, and the priest was talking right to me in the service. I felt it. I felt like my dad went to him and was like, this is what you need to say to my son, which is entirely possible he was on their board. So
slipped him a 10 and said, hey,
yeah,
you got
There you go, Father.
and so the Father Michael Harriman comes out of the service at the end of it, and he says, Kevin, I'm so very glad you're with us today. Thank you for coming. So glad you're healing up. I was still wearing my back brace and walking with my cane. My dad was hobbling me around, holding my back, you know. And he said, Kevin, how would you like to come and talk to our 7th and 8th grade class about your experience this Good Friday? It was coming up around the corner. I said, Father, I don't have a speech and I wouldn't know what to say. And my father shoved me forward and said, he'll do it. I was like, Dad. He's like, we need closure. And I'm like, you need closure, old man. I need to go home and lay down. Or I didn't say that. He's and I'm not. So I kept that to myself. But so I go home and I write a speech till 3 a.m. on Good Friday, like the day of, right? And not very mentally healthy, but I wrote the speech. My dad edited it at 8 a.m. that morning. We were at the rectory by 9. And here I am in front of 120 7th and 8th grade kids on Good Friday in the Catholic uniform I used to wear. And they're sitting cross-legged on the floor, and they're eagerly awaiting my words. I'm wearing my back brace over my shirt, and I'm holding my cane with my 17-page speech in my hand that I've typed up, and then I'm dropping page by page to the floor as I'm reading from the page. And I'm crying and I'm shaking the entire time because it's so raw. I get to the last page. I think to myself, who did that help? What a waste of time. And I see 8 hands go up. I counted them, 8 hands. I asked for the first guy, the kid in the back. Totally inappropriate question. The nun yells out, don't answer that. I said I wasn't going to. Then 7 more intuitive, empowering, important, moving, powerful questions. I was like, wait a minute. Did I just make an impact? I go home, okay? I think nothing of it. 2 weeks later, I get a call from Father Michael Harriman at the rectory. He says, come to the rectory. I've got something for you. My dad was at work. I hucked up 2 miles in my back brace and my cane to the rectory. I walk in, I'm having an asthma attack. I take my inhaler. He hands me a manila envelope. He says, open it. I open the envelope. I pull out a beautiful hand-colored drawing of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. It was beautiful. I opened that up, that folder, 120 letters from 120 kids. Now, let's not be mistaken. They were mandated to write those letters, but they weren't given parameters on what they could write. They were told to write to their heart's content. And 6 of the students wrote of their active suicidal crisis. And because we were there to have that conversation with them, and because those letters were screened because they were minors, pay attention, counselors, those kids were given the mental health care they needed. And those kids are alive today, and 2 of them are therapists.
You know, I think when folks see people who are prominent kind of mental health advocates and talk about their journey and their story, they might incorrectly think, well, that person's great now. That person's fine. He's got some fame. He might have a little bit more financial stability than he had. He's so much further down the road than me on my mental health journey. Maybe can't even relate. Do you think could you just talk a little bit about your current journey? I mean, how do you manage current struggles? Because, you know,
Sure.
You're busy. You got a lot of stress. You got a lot of pressure. These are all things that are also potential triggers for brain pain. And, you know, brain pain gets better, but it doesn't evaporate into thin air either. So can you just talk about your current journey?
It doesn't evaporate. I look at it like this. I'm in recovery every day, like one would be in recovery from substance use disorder. I still have all the symptoms I've ever had. I still have chronic thoughts of suicide. They plague me. They'll never take me. I'll never die that way. I still struggle. I still struggle on a regular basis. But I fight through that struggle, and I have the tools, the techniques, and the tricks to battle through it. One of the things I developed for the world was called the Art of Wellness. The Art of Wellness is a 10-step guide to better brain, mind, behavioral, mental, physical, spiritual health, and well-being. It's science-backed, evidence-informed, proven to change your brain and change your life with time, energy, effort, and hard work. So if you put in those things, you put in the time, effort, energy, and hard work, and you utilize the art of wellness, you will change your brain. And that will change your life. The difficult part is starting. The difficult part is putting yourself on the routine and the regimen, which is the best way we know how to battle brain pain. And so if you go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Kevin Hines, and you type in the Art of Wellness 2.0 for the video, you'll find the video that, or even just the Art of Wellness 2.0 plus Kevin Hines, you'll find that video. And people from all over the world, thousands of people from all over the world, as far as Peru, Africa, China, Japan, Canada, UK, Ireland, and beyond, are following this program, seeing a dramatic improvement in their mental well-being in 6 to 9 months of following it. Yes, it is a long-term solution, but it is the only way we are truly going to change our perspective and shift our realities when it comes to mental health. If we're not doing the work, we can't get better.
I know we're running up against it here in a minute, so I got one more question for you, sir. I think it's certainly very understated to say you're an extremely influential, inspiring individual, and that's your role, right? That's what you do. I think it's easy to say that, but I'm very curious, who inspires you on a daily basis? Is there somebody out there that is your Kevin Hines, somebody that you listen to and guides you?
I think my biggest personal inspiration is absolutely my wife. Margaret is my best friend. She's my rock. She's my healer. She helps me get through everything. On a more public wavelength, I'm really inspired by Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock. His words and messaging around defeating depression through faith have really touched me and helped me get through hard times. But really my biggest hero is my wife. She's got my back. She always has, always will. And we get through everything together.
So if they make a movie about you, Kevin, you want The Rock to play?
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
That I can beat him.
That's what I heard.
It's a perfect match physically, you and The
I
Rock.
think you got it. Yeah, I think you're.
You call me the Pebble.
Patrick, you want to bring us home?
Let's wrap this up. Kevin, we could probably have you on for 2-3 hours, but I think it's beneficial for us that you gave us a hard out today, because we can try to put a bow on this thing. So as we do here on Stuff That Matters, turn those 3 words into a question. Ceremony on the show. This is your chance to again kind of encapsulate your overall message, which you've certainly been doing throughout this podcast for the better part of the last decade or two. So Kevin, I'm going to ask you, what is the stuff that matters?
I think that hope is what matters. It may not be an action plan, but it's a possibility with hard work. I don't think it's going to come from nothing. I think that people who have no hope, people who feel no hope, they need to see that light at the end of the tunnel. They need to recognize that if they don't feel hope, they haven't walked far enough to reach it. It does matter. You can find it. You can build it. You can create it. And the actions it takes to find hope are in that Art of Wellness step plan to better your brain health. I think what else matters is family, friends, and faith. If you don't have faith in God like I do, have faith in the human condition, have faith in your ability to be well over time, have faith in your ability to thrive someday instead of just survive, have faith in your ability to be the best possible version of yourself. And if you don't have friends in your life that you can trust and rely on, build partnerships with people around you. Find people to create and make your friends. Find people to make your family if you have a faltering one right now. Those are my messages as we wrap up right now today.
That's good stuff.
Yeah,
Kevin,
man.
we appreciate you taking some time for us. I'm hoping that even if just a handful of people get exposed to you through this for the first time, that we have done our jobs today, because what you're doing is just incredible. New Hope is blessed to know you. Please know that you've got a friend and supporter in us in whatever you do moving forward. Got the net coming out, got the books coming out. We'll continue to promote your message because it is a powerful one, and just we're blessed, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.